interesting 21st century mix of cultural allegiances and colliding identities that Texas had become. Both the original Big Tex and the new one stood dead center in the very place where that old half-mythical cohesive identity had been codified and triumphantly proclaimed to the world. Fair Park, which is a few miles east of downtown Dallas, is not just the location of the annual state fair and the Cotton Bowl football stadium. It was also the site of the 1936 Texas Centennial Exposition, the gigantic birthday party that Texas staged for itself on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of its independence from Mexico. One of the core goals of the exposition was to Texanize Texans, to acquaint the citizens of the state with the marvels of its industrial might and its unparalleled history. It was also an announcement to the rest of the world of the state's poignantly unguarded self-love, a way to mirror the accomplishments of Texas to all the sons and daughters of Earth. Most of the Art Moderne buildings of the Great Exposition are still there in Fair Park, hauntingly so. When there's no football game in the Cotton Bowl, no state fair in session, the grounds are often empty. The vast exhibition edifices, with their gilded sculptures and heroic friezes, still flank the grand esplanade, where fountains lining a 700-foot reflecting pool are programmed to erupt in rhythm with the yellow rose of Texas. But the place looks like an abandoned movie set from some futuristic epic of long ago. The exposition had been created on the scale of a World's Fair. It was rushed into being with remarkable speed, more than 50 new buildings thrown up in the hinterlands of Dallas in less than 10 months. There were life-size robotic dinosaurs, a reproduction of the Globe Theater, a colossal cash register on top of the National Cash Register building that tallied up the number of each day's visitors, an average of about 36,000. The exhibition halls displayed new advances in electricity, transportation, and domestic life. There was a meant-to-be progressive hall of Negro life where visitors could learn about Black Americans, patient, loyal, patriotic attitude toward their country and their gifts of soul and song. And somehow there in the middle of Dallas, which would become famous as one of the most morally repressive cities in the country, there was a sanctioned Streets of Paris section whose artistic focal point was live naked women. The best glimpse of them was via an attraction that passed itself off as an artist's studio where patrons were handed a pad and pencil and shuffled quickly along so that they could sketch a nude model. This glimpse of what passed for European sophistication was predictably popular, but the biggest crowd-pleaser at the Centennial Exposition was Cavalcade of Texas, an extravagantly ambitious outdoor pageant chronicling the history of Texas from the arrival of the first European explorers to the great cattle drives in the waning years of the 19th century. It took place on what was billed as the world's largest stage, a performance space 300 feet wide and 170 feet deep. The stage was commodious enough to accommodate an artificial lagoon representing the Gulf of Mexico, in which a full-scale Spanish caravel sailed onto the Texas shore in the opening minutes of the production. 80-foot-high mountain peaks formed the back of the stage, and there were rocky cliffs and broad plains across which thundered mounted Indians and stagecoaches and herds of longhorn cattle. Film footage of Cavalcade of Texas is scarce, though there is a glimpse of the great stage in an old Gene Autry movie, The Big Show, that was filmed at the exposition, and you can still find copies of the souvenir program in libraries and for sale online. When you page through this booklet, it's immediately apparent how earnest and comprehensive the intentions were for this extravaganza. It began with Indians holding aloft torches and chanting to the sun god, and ended with Judge Roy Bean, the frontier magistrate who idiosyncratically represented the law west of the Pecos. In between were Spanish castaways and conquistadors, French interlopers, American colonists, the Alamo and the Texas Revolution, Comanche raids, the rise and eventual dissolution of the independent Republic of Texas, secession, and the Civil War. The Indians were played by white men in wigs and breechcloths, whose bodies were sprayed with